Logging informational messages can help finding the cause of an error. But what we really want to log always are exceptions. For demo purposes, let's surround the piece of code we've been working with a try-catch statement. What I want to show you is that for logging exceptions, logger methods provide an overload that take an exception parameter. As it's an exception, you'll often want this to have a critical level. So we're going to use the logCritical method, passing through a message and the exception. To get a hold of the actual exception, we give the caught exception a variable name so we can refer to it, and we pass that through to our logCritical method. We learned in the status code demo that unhandled exceptions will return a 500 internal server error. But now we're handling the exception, be it simply by logging it, so we must return that manually. So we remove the throw statement, and we use the status code method, passing through the status code and a message. And that is what we return. That will result in a response message with a 500 internal server error status code. Be careful with this though. This information will go back to the consumer of the API. And what you don't want to expose here is implementation details. So never write out a stack trace or anything like that in a production environment. You can of course do it while in a development environment. What often happens is that the exception message is returned through x.message, but even that potentially exposes implementation details. We've already logged the full exception, so we have all the information we need, and the consumer of the API has no use for the message anyway, because he can't fix it. It's an internal server error. So a simple message is sufficient. To see if this works, we'll throw an exception. Say exception sample. Let's give this a try. Let's send a request to get the points of interest for a city. And there we go. We get back a 500 internal server error with our message. Let's switch to the console window. And here our critical information was logged. Logging to the console window is convenient during development. But in a production environment, it's not sufficient. We'll want to log to a persistent store like the event log or a database or a file. Let's see what we can do in the next demo.